I'll let other people judge the value or not of my accomplishments, but what I would like people to remember about what I've done is that every day for all of those years, I've given it everything that I have, and I've never left anything on the field.
Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic.
Oh, what a world we live in these days. A man who is not a scientist is telling the world about science. And the one who is the scientist is making himself like a god to the world. Whether he retire or not, who cares? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and all that dwell therein. Where's the God of old that parted the Red Sea? The God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob is the same God yesterday, today, and forever. Is the same God that heals. I believe in medicines, but certain medicines that they are using for deception.
So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Dr. Fauci for his last run at the podium. It's all yours, Dr. Fauci.
I'll let other people judge the value or not of my accomplishments, but what I would like people to remember about what I've done is that every day for all of those years, I've given it everything that I have, and I've never left anything on the field. So if they want to remember me, whether they judge rightly or wrongly what I've done, I gave it all I got. Are the vaccines safe? That keeps coming up. The answer is now, overwhelmingly, it should be off the table. There have been 13 billion doses of a COVID-19 vaccine that have been distributed worldwide, hundreds of millions in the United States, and there's robust safety monitoring systems that are in place. Next, are they effective? And I believe you are all aware of this. If you look at the striking data, overwhelmingly show the effectiveness of vaccines, particularly in preventing severe illness and deaths.
Well, the thing is the entire pandemic, if it came from a lab, the fact that he approved the research and funded the lab would draw culpability to himself, culpability to the NIH, culpability to all of these people who made the unwise decision to send money to China to do dangerous research. So that's why they steadfastly resist this. But if you look at the early emails when they first discovered the sequence, the RNA sequence of this virus, January 31st of 2020, they are quite frightened. There's harried emails going back and forth till 2:30 in the morning, and all of the initial scientists are saying to him, holy cow, we've looked at the sequence and it looks like it's been manipulated in the lab. In fact, it has a cleavage site. This is the way the virus cleaves or gets into the cell that we don't see in nature typically, and that the Chinese last year asked us for money to do exactly that research. So all kinds of alarms and bells went off for a day or two. And then we have another couple of emails where Dr. Collins and Dr. Fauci are talking about how they are science and saying that, wow, this would be really damaging to science and to NIH and to all the taxpayer money we get, and also to themselves personally. So they began a cover-up, and I think it's the biggest cover-up probably in the history of science. And we will get to the bottom of this, because I promise you there's going to be a paper trail, and there's not been any interest from Democrats. But should we win in November, I will use every bit of subpoena power to get every bit of data. We will bring Fauci under oath. We will bring all of those scientists under oath, and we will get to the bottom of this.
The message that Dr. Jara and I are trying to get to you today is that we can make that happen much sooner by vaccinating and by keeping updating on your booster. It's just really as simple as that. We're going to get there. We can get there with less suffering if we use the interventions that we have. If you want to let nature take its course, we're ultimately going to get there, but we're going to lose a lot more people than we need to. The way you counter misinformation and disinformation is that to do whatever you can, as often as you can, to provide correct information.
When I was a kid, the disaster we worried about most was a nuclear war. That's why we had a barrel like this down in our basement, filled with cans of food and water. When the nuclear attack came, we were supposed to go downstairs, hunker down, and eat out of that barrel. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic. You can have a virus where people feel well enough while they're infectious that they get on a plane or they go to a market. The source of the virus could be a natural epidemic like Ebola, or it could be bioterrorism. And so there are things that would literally make things 1,000 times worse. In fact, let's look at a model of a virus spread through the air like the Spanish flu back in 1918. So here's what would happen. It would spread throughout the world very, very quickly. And you can see there's over 30 million people die from that epidemic. So this is a serious problem. We should be concerned.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. God still heals.